Hello and welcome, POTR fans. That's Podcast of the Rings fans, if you're one of them. And if you didn't know, you're listening to Podcast of the Rings. I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi, and as ever, I am joined by my co-host, resident Tolkien expert, Alexander Mitchell. Hello there, Alexander.
Hey, Jess.
Hi, Alex. How the heck are you?
Doing well. How about you?
I didn't expect you to not elaborate. I'm doing fine. I'm trying to pass off the mantle to you.
Well, I am thrilled because we have just seen episode 6 of The Rings of Power, Udûn.
Udûn. You were out of town for one day when the episode was released, and it was very hard, to not be on the internet, very hard to watch it, to not watch it without you, but we'd ended up working out that we were able to watch it later in the evening, despite what we thought.
I know you were off Twitter. I was scrolling through Twitter occasionally, and I had to just quickly scroll past stuff.
Right.
I managed to not get any spoilers, thankfully.
And people are typically good about it. It seemed to be mostly impressions or what people thought, like, I told you, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still a lot to extrapolate from if you don't know what you're looking for. But I do want to get into it. There's so many questions. We really, you and I haven't unpacked about this episode. Sometimes we're like, oh, there's so much to talk about. We have not got a chance to deep dive. So I think overall, though, both of our impressions of episode 6, Udûn, was beyond positive.
It was a very good episode. I mean, we had praised some of the episodes in the past when they had more focus, right? I think it was episode 3, where it was mainly focused on the Elrond, Durin stuff and the Numenor stuff. This was the most focused episode, and I think it was the better for it. We really only focused on the main point of action, the rising action here in the Southlands, and boy, was there a lot happening just in this one thread here. Sort of a convergence of the Numenor stuff with Arondir and Bronwyn and Theo and the Southlanders. So, and just thematically and character-wise, a lot going on, with a good heaping helping of some awesome action as well. So this episode, I think, had it all.
And if we're looking at it from how one of the writers described it, this is an 8-episode-long movie, and we are in the climax of war right now. We are in the Helm's Deep, right? And, I saw some criticism about, all right, enough with the Peter Jackson nods, we get it. And I'm curious, there was a lot of Peter Jackson-esque shots, horror elements, Galadriel whispering to the horse, the horses cresting the hill, all these things. Yeah. Did that bother you? Or is it bothering you now?
I don't think so, because I think there is an element of it that is sort of paying homage to what Peter Jackson did. But I think in general what he did, it doesn't feel out of place here, because it, I think, is in service of Tolkien's world as well. So it didn't feel like, there's another Peter Jackson on it. It just felt like they're doing the Tolkien thing. And maybe that's my own bias coming through with having grown up with that being with the Peter Jackson films being the adaptation I knew. And so I have, ties with those that run deep, whereas maybe older viewers and Tolkien fans don't. So I was not bothered by those. I mean, the whispering to the horse, I thought it was reminiscent of the way Arwen does it.
It was 100% reminiscent.
Yeah,
it was,
but it
intentionally.
Yeah, but it fits. I mean, I wasn't taken out by that. So,
well, and you bring up a good point. It, in a way, in the same way that Tolkien created the Elvish language and Black speech and all these things, Peter Jackson created the visual language for it. and they're just using the techniques to tell a similar tale that leads up to they're not retelling the Lord of the Ring trilogy
Right.
that he created. Another thing it's making me remember, or it's reminding me of, is the Orville is an homage in a loving way to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Star Trek,
right?
But you could go, oh, they're circling the moon. Oh, I do that in Star Trek a lot.
Yeah,
Yes. Now, but the other question it brings to mind is, Peter Jackson said when the series was about to come out that they did contact him at the top and then they ghosted him. Is there a world where they saw how much they were going to pull from Jackson and they're like, oh, wait, we don't want him to say we shouldn't do that?
I don't think so. I think it was probably just wires getting crossed. I wouldn't read too much into that of them snubbing him. I mean, there's a lot going on with the production, so maybe at some point they thought...
It's kind of hard to forget Peter Jackson, though. It's a weird person to forget in the
Sure, it could also be, I don't know, legal stuff. I don't know the ins and outs of that. But he was happy to get involved, and I'm sure if he was involved, he wouldn't have said, don't do this, don't do that. He would have just given his input and advice and been like a consultant. But they obviously ended up taking a lot from his adaptations. And I will say... for as much as they do tip the hat in certain moments and shots and beats, there's a lot that's different, especially in this episode. The thing I want to talk about is, in these action set pieces, the gore. That's one of the things that struck me in this episode. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it is definitely something we haven't seen. We didn't really see from, obviously, The Hobbit, but even in The Lord of the Rings, there is violence and blood
implied.
Yes, exactly. There is blood and there are bloody moments in Peter Jackson's trilogy, but this episode, man, there was like spurts of blood, and the moment with Arondir with the eye, like.
Bloodlets of coin size were dropping into his mouth. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and like the slow pulling out of the thing from the Orcs' eye. Like, this episode was graphic.
And horror. There was a lot of horror. Because,
yes.
People, I don't have it. I'm sorry, trigger warning. I could touch my eye if I needed to. I once had to dig out one of my best friend's contacts on a plane. And that was horrific for anybody that doesn't like that.
Yeah.
I'm not none of those people, but I recognize that people don't like that. The literally full 45 seconds of trying to press the stake into into Arondir's eye.
Yeah.
People, I bet you turned it off.
Oh yeah. There's definitely people out there who are like, yeah, show me disembowelments and spurts of blood and decapitations, but don't get near anybody's eye or I'm going to turn away and get squeamish. And it was definitely unnerving and uncomfortable in a good way.
I'm not going to, yeah, I agree. I forgive me if there is something else out there doing this quality of work, this level of detail, down to building the entire village, right? Like everything I'm realizing is practical, except for probably obviously some psychs and like the obviously the sunset's not the real sunset on the ocean or whatever.
And even like a lot of the blood spurts were CGI. There's a moment where in that sort of panning shot where Arondir gets pulled off the roof, he like stabs a guy and the end of the blade is like CG. So like they're enhancing a lot of these practical things and like cool shots they're doing with CG, which is how you should use CG in my opinion.
Totally. Like to not. And we see it in like one of his like roundhouse kicks where like they're using it to hide the cut or whatever. And that's not pulling me out of it. But what I'm trying to say is the gore is amazingly well done. Probably some of the best I've seen where I could still watch it, right? And still believable. And the action sequence and the fighting sequences are some of the most compelling I've seen on TV. Maybe somehow other people are doing it to this quality. But even in Marvel, it's a lot of quick cuts. It's a lot of poof, poof, poof sound.
Yeah.
We saw Arondir in pain.
Yes. They definitely did not do the, if you've seen the later movies in the Jason Bourne series, like where it's the shaky cam and the quick cuts. Like they took their time, they held on these moments, even so much as in the which easily it could have been that kind of frenetic sort of cinematography to capture that energy after. So I know we're kind of jumping all around in terms of plot.
No,
but
I think
that's
I think
fine.
I think we're talking about like the overall
Action
quality and action of the thing. But I hear you.
After they like fall back to the tavern in the Southlands, right, and Bronwyn has been shot, right, they take their time with the whole like her on the table, and like we see Treadwell, die, and like they really pace that scene nicely to where you're seeing her in pain for a while. She's talking to Theo. Arondir like snaps the arrow and pulls it out. It's not like this quick, like, oh, we got to get it. It easily could have been, but he takes a beat to say like, I'm sorry. And we see her in pain, and it like takes so long for them to like cauterize the wound and everything. Like the pacing of that is really well done. And so it doesn't seem just like sort of cheap gore or action. Like it really it draws you in as a viewer.
I hear you, because you're right. Like you see people cauterize the wound. We've seen dressing on TV, but to really see it like and not in a medical procedural, it was horrific, and you're like, oh, she actually could die, she should die, and we can see him putting effort into not. Granted, there are other people that got shot. Are you putting the same amount of effort into them?
She's the leader.
It wasn't just, I understand,
and to be fair, she does say like, no, look after Treadwell first, and then he just dies.
I know. So. This is true. I'm being a little facetious.
Sure.
This, though, I will say, they were being stormed by the Orcs.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have that amount of time.
Well, they were waiting for Adar.
Where was Adar?
Off somewhere.
They were running in. We saw them run in. So basically, this is what I imagine is like, to the keep, and they go in, throw her on the table, and maybe they had enough time to take out the arrow, and if the Orcs were being kind, they were just waiting outside. They could have just.
I think they knew they had him surrounded. I mean, we get the shot where the woman like looks out and she sees the Orc like darting. I think they're like surrounding it, making sure that there's no ways they can escape out before they storm in. They're locking it down because they know, like, look, where are they going to go, right?
And that's fair.
And then they're waiting for Adar.
Because also they're not coming in there to kill and slay everybody.
Right.
They need the keep.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, let's start picking apart the plot of the episode. I think blanket understanding that this is the beauty we get in streaming is take your darn time to tell a story, not rush, and do an hour and a half of amazing storytelling.
Yeah.
That moves you, and there's moments with chills and you get amazing action sequences, yada yada. So we can agree on that.
Yes.
Adar. I do want to just talk about Adar for a second now that we've brought him up.
In my favorite character in this episode.
He has only gotten better.
Yeah.
Someone was talking about how he's a soft-spoken, villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, duh. But I there's a part of me that's like, again, visuals are important for me. It's not the only thing, but I'm like, does it look bad? Is he as scary as he is? But he's not supposed to be.
Exactly, and that's what I love about him in this episode. The opening of the episode, and they do this on purpose. The first thing we see is him, and we later learn the significance of this is planting the Alpharin seeds, which later on, Arondir will go to say this is a elf tradition that we do before battle, new life in spite of death. So even though Adar has been corrupted, there is still in him a reverence for life. Now, maybe different life than our heroes of the story, and we see that he cares about it. He is not just interested in domination of Middle-earth and, advancing the agenda of Sauron, if he is, which we'll get to. There's some question there now. Although it seems like that is what he's doing, but who knows? In the speech he gives, he's rallying these orcs and saying, like, look, we're no longer enslaved. We've toiled. Our feet have bled in this trek, and now we have a home. And again, we get to the significance of the title of this episode, Udûn, which is, in one sense, there's a couple meanings of the word, but it is the Udûn Vale, which is a part of Mordor. So that's, I think, one connection to the title, is it's the home of the orcs. And so he wants a home for his people. And I think that's an interesting dimension to the character. And we see him as a leader, even caring for them. He's not just like, all right, go and, get yourselves killed, right? He doesn't view these orcs as just sort of disposable soldiers, right? He views them as his children. And we got that in his first introduction when he mercifully kills Magrot. So we're getting that progression too. We've seen that before. We're seeing it again. I want to jump ahead as well, unless you have thoughts on the opening.
No. I think I have thoughts on him being an Uruk and
yes.
Orc daddy, but it's not it. What?
So in that opening speech, an interesting thing I noticed is, now granted, we see a mixed audience, right? Because we had those Southlanders who joined, and we get that great shot of like the orc like, and then Waldrag kind of looking up at him like, what am I doing here? Which I thought was very funny, a moment of levity in a very serious scene. But he addresses the crowd and says, brothers and sisters. So are there female orcs present that we just haven't seen?
We have seen them.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's very subtle. There was one in the Warg episode that I consciously noticed.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. I'll have to go back and scrub through.
Yeah, because again, one of the things. So again, jumping ahead, we've captured Adar, and Galadriel confirms the theory that Morgoth corrupted elves, creating the first orc, and then from that point, one must assume that the children of said corrupted elves go on to create orcs, as we know them now. Probably in the incestual sense that they're a little, I don't know, who knows, because they're all a little deformed, to say the least, right?
Yes.
So, but they really are, like I said to you, they are the children of Adar. Another thing Adar said too is I'm not the only elf left alive with darkness in their heart. So he's insinuating that all the other cursed or turned elves are dead by saying that, by the way.
That's not how I interpreted that. So in that scene, he says that towards the end.
Well, I mean, he's throwing amazing, he's really holding up a mirror literally to Galadriel.
Yes.
But by saying, I'm not the only elf alive that's let darkness turn them, meant to me that there's no other Uruk besides him left.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, because that's a specific choice of words.
I just interpreted that as him basically looking at Galadriel and saying, look, you're talking about me being corrupted. You just threatened my entire race, and basically we're saying you're going to commit genocide. So maybe you should take a look at the darkness inside of you before you judge me.
Both things happened.
Yeah.
I think it's both things. So, because I'm not denying that that's exactly what his point was.
Yeah.
But to say I'm not the only one left, he said. So he's insinuating that he's alone, save for these orcs. So, excuse me. This feels like I just had orange juice or something. I lost the thread of what I was going to say a little bit, but one thing I wanted to talk about was he does an interesting job of humanizing his orc babies for us in a way we hadn't ever been able to do before. Like with the female and the male, you would have to assume that that's how the population continues. And I thought it was funny. He didn't don't say brother and then brother and sister. Like, I just thought it was funny. Like, well, as brothers. It felt like you made a mistake. Like, brothers and sisters, I mean.
Men and women.
Yeah. It was a very funny thing. Like, just say brothers and sisters or as family or something. Yeah. But, yeah. So, yeah, take a look. There are female orcs.
I did want to touch on
Well, I wasn't done.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Well, this was the thing. The other thing I was coming back to. He said that they deserve a home, but it's how he's going about it that prevents them from deserving that home. Wouldn't you agree? Like destroying the land and killing people in order to have that home? Yes,
I agree. I mean,
I know that's obvious, but it's...
Yeah.
We have some empathy now for them or sympathy, but it's like, dude, go to Antarctica. Live there. Like...
I mean, that's not... It's not the most hospitable place. They did that.
And that's likely where they were when he, quote unquote, killed Sauron.
Well, so he does say they marched from the Ered Mithrin, which are the Grey Mountains, to, where was it? The Ethel Arnen, which is basically the mountains surrounding Mordor. So they marched all the way from where basically Erebor is, the Grey Mountains up there, all the way down. So they marched basically all across Middle-earth to get here. So they went a long way through many trials and tribulations, I'm sure. There's a whole spin-off series in just the journey of Adar and his children.
I'm an orc, you're an orc, and he's our dad. Yeah, totally. Too many orcs.
So this idea of empathy for the orcs, I think, is a very interesting one. And I want to tie this in to what we know about how Tolkien played with the origins of orcs. So there are, like everything, there are many different accounts for their origins that Tolkien went through, different iterations. And the one that Christopher Tolkien ended up putting in the Silmarillion was this idea of Morgoth capturing elves and corrupting them. And so, but before they used to be sort of basically almost golems, like animate earth that were just infused with darkness, and they didn't have souls, and they were almost more machine-like. And so they could be, in the stories that he was writing, just indiscriminately killed, and it wasn't a problem because, well, they're not actually living beings created by Eru Ilúvatar. So I love that the writers here are playing with this consequence of the origin that we happened to have in the Silmarillion of the orcs, is that they are beings created by God, Eru Ilúvatar, that have souls but have been corrupted. And so where does that leave them in the greater scheme of things, right? We know what happens to elves when they die. We don't know what happens to men, but we know that they have a fate separate from everyone else. And so we have these ideas of, potential afterlives and where these beings fit into the cosmology. But orcs, it's kind of this unanswered question. Well, do their spirits go to the halls of Mandos because they once were elves, or have they been so corrupted that their souls go somewhere else? And almost this, idea of them deserving some level of forgiveness on a theological scale. Yeah. Which Tolkien never got around to grappling. And who knows, maybe had he done more revisions, he would have changed their origins to make this quote-unquote problem with the orcs. That's what it's been referred to a lot, is sort of the orc problem, go away. But I love that they're facing this, not in the way Galadriel wants the orc problem to go away. But I love that the writers are facing this sort of wrinkle in the story head on and going, no, we're going to have this be a central thing with Adar and deal with where do the orcs fit into this world as beings of Arda, as creatures made by Eru, and not just making them cannon fodder, which we've seen in the other adaptations. So they're treating them like the race of people that they are, which I think is very interesting, and I love that they're doing that.
Yeah, it definitely gives it depth as opposed to just again, yeah, because there are implications and uncomfortable ones when it comes to the orc race, especially in D&D, and especially their way they're treated. The history of it is not good. In a very, you know, not political but very amazing, like in the way that good art should, it reflects onto us different ways we could be, and they're doing that well, I think. Again, I'm not trying to say orcs are like they're a simile to races in our culture, but they have been treated that way in certain works. And so by humanizing them, that kind of does face the human problem that we face in general too.
Right. And this episode deals with a lot of those themes. I mean, in that moment, we get Galadriel saying, "Oh, you're corrupted, you orcs," and then Adar like, "Oh, we prefer Uruk. Like orc is a slur to our people. Right? We have a name in our language." And having this conflict, it's interesting because it really it subverts in certain ways like some of these ideas of, you know, having this cosmic good versus cosmic evil idea in Tolkien. But
again, which is what we really unpacked last episode about the gray area.
Yeah, and they really lean into that because we're getting sort of a tinge of the light in Adar where we're saying, oh, like, yeah, I mean, these are living beings, and like, what does that mean for orcs, and how we look at them and feel about them, and how other characters do, like the Southlanders, right? We get those moments when they're rejoicing because they've killed these hordes of orcs, and then they see, well, amongst them were some of their own, and then they immediately become sorrowful, and it's like, well, they're both living creatures. You know what I mean? Granted, one was your enemy and one wasn't.
But those people also, I mean, probably under duress had to go fight them. But
true, but I think, yes, but I think also
it was demoralizing for everybody to see how it affected Arondir. I'm not suggesting that they deserved it. I am just saying they did defect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, Adar was like, I don't care. We'll kill you, or you can let them kill you. Like one of the two.
And for sure, there is a callousness there and an evilness to him that is not admirable at all. But I think
is that not Galadriel in our world?
Yes, too? but the killing of the Southlanders by the Southlanders to me brought up this thing of, in my mind, it was like questioning the assumption of, oh yeah, we kill orcs and we celebrate because it's fine.
And we're in the right,
right? Because you had that moment, and I felt that, and then when they revealed it wasn't orcs, I went, and then I went, well, it made me kind of rethink those assumptions of just like, oh yeah, it's fine to indiscriminately kill orcs, and, you know, with Legolas and Gimli like joking on the walls of Helm's Deep about how many they're killing, right? So it served a dual purpose there, I think, for me as a viewer.
It's like a psychological mind F, you know, in a good way. Yeah, that's again letting the storytelling do the work instead of being on your soapbox.
Yes,
right?
I've never felt really
preached to.
Yeah. And but
you are learning something.
I can see where they are sort of injecting maybe a little bit, or at least highlighting, like, you could have this be something that relates to ideas in our own current climate politically, and how you could, you know, extrapolate those. But I've never felt like it's like allegorical. I know some people were making jokes about like the in Numenor, when you had the one guild member of the Smiths get up and be like, the elves are coming to take our jobs. I didn't see it as that heavy-handed, but people are going to draw those conclusions.
Sure.
But yeah, this didn't feel to me like they were beating us over the head with anything.
That especially the murdering of ourselves, essentially.
Yeah.
That didn't ping for me. It just was more of like very bleak moment, but you're so right to reflect on that. I could talk about Arondir's abs forever, but I don't think we should. But his action sequences were incredible, from taking the tower down, jumping down, closing the door behind him, to get rolling off the roof, fighting a giant orc. Again, we already did talk about it, but like it just deserves to be reiterated that we're talking about an exceptional actor playing an exceptional role with the money and the effects backing up what they wanted to do storytelling wise with this character. There are times where it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Tony Stark's the best. Actually, you can always believe Tony Stark is doing it, but there's some characters you're like, this person would be dead by now. But he's a very smart elf and even is fighting well.
Even with the sort of big confrontation he has with that big orc, it's not like he's just kicking butt. He's struggling, and Bronwyn has to come in and save him. So it never... Which
also is a little ex machina, I'm not gonna lie. She's gotten 2 jumps on people. She's all of a sudden an amazing, fighter. She cut off 1 orc head and now she can kill 25. She doesn't blink at her friend getting her throat slit, but that's okay. So I'm just saying it's a little, that's a little bit like, okay, I'll give you this stretch. We didn't see what she was dealing with up until this point. And of course you're going to go find your man. Yeah. I'm going to go find you. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go stab them.
Before they poke my eye out, yeah.
Correct. I will do my best.
Well, and you know why I think that happened? It's because of the big thing that happened in this episode. They finally kissed, and it was so good, and I'm glad they made us wait. It was earned.
I think they made us wait too long. It was earned. I didn't get the, sharp intake that I normally do, but maybe because I was watching on my laptop. But I don't know. It was beautiful, especially watching it the second time, and I believe them. But man, Arondir deserves
and him
better.
Being like, "Don't worry, we'll plant more when we have a garden together. You and I with the." It's so romantic.
You could learn a thing or two from him.
I'm taking notes. Don't worry.
Yeah, and then he makes her touch his wood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a very erotic.
And for a Sylvan elf, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. I was like, why are you making her touch a tree, bro? What's going on? Oh, they basically just got married right there.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't know about the Sylvan marital customs, but I think that's right.
I think they're done.
Yeah.
But that does bring me to some reflection on Theo, who he has gone 180 from what I thought we were going to see him to do. And I mostly like it.
I was team he's going to get corrupted, and now I don't think so.
That doesn't mean he won't, because, we still have yet to talk about Hallbrand, and I have some thoughts.
Oh,
okay. But, because again, let's not forget, 9 of these men got to end up with rings and get corrupted. And we see Theo talk about the power that sword left him feeling empty from.
Yeah, he says he felt loss, not shame from,
So no human is above, essentially. So Theo could have a great positive turn. Hallbrand could not stab Adar in the neck, but that doesn't preclude him from being turned eventually, or what have you.
True.
So the thing is, though, part of me didn't know if I believed Theo standing up for the right thing, although he's still young enough that you can believe it. He's like, God, I don't want to hurt my mom. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to let his mom down. And we see a scared kid who can fight.
And that was the thing that I really loved most about this episode is we didn't really... We saw Theo before as this kind of sulky, hormonal teenager, a little just mad at mom. Yeah, no, leaving his friend or his friend leaving him when he goes and is doing a stupid thing. But he's really humanized in this episode where he has the moment with Bronwyn where he's like, oh, remember what you said to me as a kid? Can you say it to me now? And she talks about, again, we get the themes of the shadow and the light. But he's a kid who needs the comfort of his mom and the love of his mom to get him through this super dark moment that he doesn't know if either of them is going to see the other side of, and he's scared.
He literally says farewell to her.
Like he thinks it's going to be the last time.
Yeah. So he the quote that Bronwyn says to Theo is a famous Tolkien quote that people didn't like how it was used here. Some people felt it was unearned. I felt like it was a little too poetic. I didn't know that it was a Tolkien quote going into it. Like, some people just, everyone has a favorite quote if it's their favorite work. And so some people knew this because they liked the quote very well.
Right.
And I could see it being, if you have a reverence for something and it's not used in the way you would use it, not liking it. I personally felt like, just do a little prayer or something. It was a lot. It was a lot of information.
Yeah, I mean, I
didn't hate it. It was beautiful, but it was a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was fitting. I mean,
do you know what that quote is used for elsewhere?
I don't recall it from any Tolkien text. But
maybe haters just hating.
Very possible.
There was a whole thread, and again, that's how I am on the internet. It's like, ooh, people are mad. You don't know how hard it is. How hard it is for me not to engage. But it is. I think it's interesting to see both sides, so that you can also have better awareness to what you're arguing for and against, or like what do I believe in, etc. So that moment was, I guess melodramatic is the moment I'm looking for, but it was still a much needed moment between Bronwyn and Theo, because we really haven't seen a lot of love between them. We've just seen him be really bratty.
Yeah, it was a good. It was a moment that humanized him, and definitely it gave me a better sense of their relationship as mother and son. But for me, I didn't see it as melodramatic, because this is the thing. On the eve of battle, this is what you do. It's very Tolkien.
Totally.
Like, so
just for my 2 cents, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It just felt like, okay, we get it. You guys are gonna die.
I mean, we basically had like 3 speeches. We had the Adar speech at the top. We had the Arondir speech to the townsfolk, and then we had the Bronwyn speech, and we didn't get really a Númenorian.
We did not get a
because they were just kind of hauling ass to get to the Southlands. They were just riding. There was no time for talking. They're like, all right, we're late. We got to get there.
I'm glad you're talking about the Númenorians now, because we really have to address.
Oh my God,
Isildur and Beric. But how did they know where to go? How did they know? Because the mountain is that they were just heading toward the mountain. Is that what it was?
I think it was a combination of, they knew from the symbol.
Right.
And they knew because Halbrand.
I see. So Halbrand knew the area.
Yeah, he was like, yep, they were headed this way, and yeah.
I see. Okay. So then I believe it a little bit more. Also, Charlie Vickers did a lot of his own practical horse shots, which is awesome. I think a lot of the other actors did too, but you can tell in the stunt work when they storm the village, there is amazing presence on these horses and amazing choreography and stunt work going on. And anybody that wants to come for Galadriel doing some sick horse moves, I invite you to go back and look at the ridiculous horse swing that Legolas does, which is counterintuitive to momentum. He should have grabbed the horse's reins and just swung to the right of it, and instead swung from the right to the left. It was the most. And it is. You make fun of it all you want. Galadriel's didn't look silly. It just didn't. It looked great. Yeah. And she did it twice to prove that she could do it. Yeah. She didn't need to prove, but she can.
Well, what was cool? The coolest to me was, it was like Legolas's was okay. He's like mounting a horse. All right, cool. She did like a matrix to dodge the arrow, and then on the way back up to get on her horse, just completely cut an orc in half. It was awesome.
And then she dodges the arrow again.
I think it was a javelin. I think the second one was a javelin.
Literally. Yeah. But again,
it like when she dodges the javelin, that's when Theo looks at her and goes, "Who's that?" That's when we really know he's a 16-year-old boy.
For real, right? He's really softened and then got really hard, and it's no shocker that an elf is that keen and can handle that kind of amazing horse work.
Yeah. She's the commander of the Northern Armies. Come on.
So here's the thing that bothers me the most about the episode is Isildur wakes up to do his there's actually two things in this moment that of the whole episode bothered me the most. He gets up to clean the stable, shovel the poop, and has an apple, doesn't wash his hands, has an apple. That's the third thing. Doesn't wash his hands, eating an apple with his bare hands after shoveling horse manure, and then goes to give a bite to Beric, who obviously didn't bite the apple.
Takes a bite first.
Takes a bite, gives Beric a bite.
And I think both of us in this moment were thinking, okay, cool. And then he's going to go and do something else after he takes the bite and then the horse takes the bite.
No, I told you he was going to put it to his mouth. I told you he was going to. And then what did he do? He put it to his mouth and ate the next bite, literally in the spot where the horse had just had their bite.
Basically, he's secondhand kissing Beric.
Correct. Well, and and Beric secondhand kissed him too. Anyway, he gets called up to the top and brings the apple with him.
Well, he doesn't get called up. He goes up.
I thought he he looked to the left. He didn't get called, but something caught his attention, so he went to the top. I think I thought that's what happened. Anyway, he walks up to the top of the deck, takes another bite of the apple, by the way, which is still 2/3 available for food, and then just decides to throw it in the ocean. You didn't give that to your horse? You throw a whole apple into the ocean?
Look, he's dealing with a lot right now.
No, he's not. He's not.
Yes, he is.
What?
He wanted to come here to find... Well, we later learn he wanted to leave Numenor because he didn't think it was the true Numenor. But he also wanted to serve. And because he's in the position he's in, he's not going to get to. And we see that later where he's just chilling with Muriel when the battle starts. So I think he's just frustrated in this moment with his whole life. With everything about his life. Like, nothing is going good for him except for Beric. That's the only thing he has is Beric. And that's why, in this episode, we start with Isildur and Beric, and we end with Isildur and Beric. Like, that is the common thread for his character, which I love, is that he just loves his horse. I want to jump ahead to another...
Well, I was going to say the third thing that bothers me in this scene is when he happens upon Galadriel, and she's soldier or whatever, and it's a really nice moment.
Yeah.
She's basically humble bragging that she can see the land for an hour, and then she goes, "What's your rank?" And girl, you could smell him. You should know what his rank is. Your keen eyes.
Yeah, he is rank.
And your keen scent. Yeah, she should have been like, "Oh, never mind. I can smell your horse."
I think she's being polite.
Okay.
In that moment. And the thing I like about this moment, not only do we get more insight into Isildur because he's sort of being not interrogated, but he's being asked questions by Galadriel. This is like the first time that I think, well, the second time, because we in the little fight scene where she's training the recruits, we see her sort of self-confidence and she seems like happy and comfortable. In this moment when she's like in her armor, she's in command on the ship,
right.
She just seems chill to the max. Like she's just like, all right, I'm like in my element, we're about to go to battle, like totally cool. She doesn't seem like mad, and I love it. I love that we're seeing Galadriel like doing what she's good at, and in this moment just like at peace, even though they're about to go into battle.
Totally.
And being nice to Isildur, really. And then she finds out that he's Elendil's son, and we get that nice moment where she says, "Oh, I should have known you look like your father." And then he says, "Well, more like my mother, actually." And then Elendil comes, and we get that nice moment, which I think will pay off later, where Isildur is still kind of, the words of his father are ringing in his ears about, like, I hope one day you can sort of show me you're worthy of anything that I give you. And the disappointment that his father sort of communicated to him, and he addresses him, "All right, Captain," like, and they share a little moment of just kind of like,
right.
There's awkwardness there, and I liked that. And then Elendil, Galadriel asks what happened to his wife. And we get this beautiful moment where he says, she asks him, like, how did your wife die? And he says, well, we're sailing into the dawn, yet to me it feels like the coming of night. And so Elendil here, I think, he sees...
Does he say the coming of night? I thought he said he's coming of day. He said coming of light. Oh, he said night because it sounded like light to me, which is why I was so confused.
Yeah, so the basic metaphor he's painting here is they're sailing east into Middle-earth, and they're watching the sunrise as this conversation is happening. That's when Isildur walks off, is when the sun rises. And he basically says, I'm so used to looking out east and seeing the sun rise over the sea, and then looking out west and seeing the sun set across the land. And now I'm watching the sun rise across the land, but it seems to me, even though we are sailing into the dawn, it seems to me like the coming of night, because both visually, he's used to seeing the sun when it's cresting the land, the sun's setting, and also on a sort of a metaphorical level, he senses this isn't just going to be all right, we're going to go in there and take care of things, and like he senses that there's some bad things about to happen, and he's going to be right about that, I think.
And let's remember, Tar Palantir said to the Muriel, don't go to Middle Earth. Nothing awaits you but darkness. Yep. So he knew. He couldn't say a volcano's going to erupt. My darling, don't go.
Well, and I think not only that, but I think in terms of Numenor, because this is the beginning of Numenor's. It's been in decline, but this is the beginning of the hastening of that, where they start ruling over the men of Middle-earth and becoming even greedier and greedier, and then will eventually go and stand against the Valar. But so he senses that things are going to be accelerating, I think.
I wonder if we won't see them go against the Valar, though, because is that in the appendices?
Yeah, I believe
it is. So I just think it's interesting. I wonder how they will introduce the Valar, or how they feel like
that's what causes the sinking of the island.
I understand. But again, just the way that they're turning their backs on elves in general could be causing that. So I wonder if they could truncate it that way without going to the Valar. But that's way too much extrapolation from very little. Maybe something once the 8 episodes are done, we could theorize where it will go.
All I'll say is, if they do change that element of the Numenor legend, that will be a deviation from what we see in the texts that I would think every single fan would be very displeased about.
Very fair. I'm just trying to keep in mind what did the appendices cover, what didn't.
I believe it's in there.
Because, great. I have to say I'm so proud of Antimo.
Oh my God, poor Antimo.
I know. He's just a feeler.
The face that he gives when he's like, oh, I've seen enough for a lifetime. Like, I think I said to you when we were watching this, he's very much got Sam energy. A little bit.
Big Sam energy. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to go get married to Rosie, have a couple babies, and I'm going to be chill here. I'm a Southlander now.
Yeah, I just live here. He's Sam if Sam didn't have like the level of devotion to Frodo to go with him to the end.
Right.
He would just be like...
He's fatty.
Yeah, he's Fatty Bulger. For sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I'm proud of him for knowing that he couldn't go on. Mm-hmm. And then, now, the Numenorians run through town, get back to, we chase Adar down. Mm-hmm. Halbrand rushes in. We have a moment where Isildur saves his daddy, because we already know that he's lost his mommy.
Well, he doesn't save him. Halbrand saves him.
Yeah, but he thought his daddy was going to die.
He like charges. So we get Muriel kind of seeing Isildur looking very anxious, and she's like
a horse.
She's like, all right, I'm putting you in, right off the bench. He goes, and Beric leaps over a bunch of orcs, and Beric gets slashed. Beric gets hurt.
I know.
Halbrand is the one who saves Elendil as he gets dismounted, but then Isildur runs up, and they have a nice father-son moment. The previous awkwardness is kind of faded. They're like, all right, we're in it now. Like you are worthy. You've sort of proven yourself. Like you're coming in and saving me. Like, all right, cool.
Right. But now we have Adar. Oh, by the way, I did want to. A lot of orcs died in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, none were harmed during the filming. But we didn't see what happened to our good little orc boy, who we still don't know who the actor is. We saw him. Come on, you guys, get it open, get the door open. So there's a possibility that he got
crushed.
I just would like to feel like they gave him a little bit more of that if he got dead. And so I'm going to assume he's not dead.
We're hoping.
Because we didn't see him
Nope.
die. We saw the big orc boy get crushed,
Mm-hmm.
one of them.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's the main one, but we saw one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say our good orc boy is still alive somewhere.
Yes.
And that's okay. I feel good about that for right now, because I just don't want to lose another one.
No, we can't have another Maethor situation.
No. So Halbrand is told to stay his staff, or his, what is it, spear?
Yeah.
Which is very Sauron looking,
Okay.
by the way. And he says to Adar, remember me.
Mm-hmm.
And Adar doesn't remember him. And it's cold-blooded.
Very much, for me, it was just another Tuesday.
Totally. And we get some Dutch angles in a barn in hopes of making the scene between Galadriel and Adar much more
so
interesting.
in the moment where they stop Adar in the forest, we get a nice reversal where Galadriel is the one who says, seawater won't quench your thirst, which is what Halbrand had said to her in prison when they were both locked up in Numenor. So we get a nice little reversal there of her kind of spinning his own advice back at him, and
she tops him.
Exactly. And I'm interested here. What did Adar do? Adar clearly doesn't remember. He says, who was it? Was it a lover? Was it your lover, I think he says?
A woman.
Or a woman? Was it your child? So I want to know what exactly, and I think this will be significant, what exactly did he do? Who did he kill? What is...
Well, let's not forget, one of the things that's weighing on Halbrand is what he did.
Sure.
For in like almost like a wall drag, my thought is. So did Adar demand something of Halbrand that caused him to do something? I think if I'm going to follow what the hints of the script is giving us, there was a child and the child was killed or something like that. So, or he stole my innocence. I don't know. But I think the way that hung in the air, it would lead one to think that that's what it was. But there still is what Halbrand did, which we don't have an inkling of.
So you're
which is also what haunts him.
You're saying it was a situation of Adar coming into town and being like, all right, if you don't kill your kid or something, then I'm going to kill everybody.
It very well could be that.
Something.
It very well could be that. And he could have also said no, and he killed the wife, and then he had to kill the. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think we see Halbrand killing a child, but I think there are two things that are true. Adar did some bad things, and Halbrand did some bad things too, and we've yet to find them out.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out too that we got a couple replies to our tweet as we put out before each time we record. If you have any thought, and McJur the Minotaur had a lot of great thoughts about this episode, and even Geeks with Shield said that this episode missed for them, which is interesting. But all valid opinions.
Sure.
The McJur said that the part where with Adar when he revealed the Moriondor, which admittedly sounds like they smashed the words Moria and Gondor together, was interesting. A bit far-fetched, but pretty cool and somewhat cleverly extracted from the lore. And the way he explained Sauron's motivations, his obsession with order, and like he felt like it took straight out of the letters. And he loved it. So you said that to me, and that's why I was like, wow, this is awesome. We're getting Sauron motivation.
Yes.
Here's what I think, Alex.
Okay.
Adar says that he killed Sauron because
I wanted to circle back to this, but no, like when because we had kind of stopped talking about the interrogation. I could do a whole hour on the interrogation scene. When he says he killed Sauron,
I killed Sauron. Did he say I cut him in half? I slit him in half? He says,
I think I split him in half or something like that, but he's implying he killed him.
I wonder if Halbrand is not one half of Sauron. Because I think I'm of the camp that this episode made it even more obvious that Halbrand's Sauron.
Look, I'm still of the opinion that we have not seen Sauron yet. None of the characters we've seen are Sauron. Sauron will be revealed maybe at the end of this season or beginning of season 2. I would imagine that's going to be cliffhanger for season 1.
What makes you think that Halbrand is not Sauron?
I think he has a part to play. I don't think he's wholly good. I think he might be a tool for Sauron. Nothing about his motivations lead me to believe he's Sauron. I mean, so
exactly. What if he doesn't know he's Sauron? So that's kind of what I'm. Hold on, but that's kind of what I'm. Again, they've stretched some.
That would be a stretch
and
Armstrong.
How about this? It's not insignificant that when they start cheering for the true king of the Southland, that Mount Doom erupts right then.
But it erupts because they put the sword in and unleash...
The timing, the doom, Alex, the Tolkien of it all.
Look.
You can't say one thing is fate and the other isn't.
Look, I don't think that they would...
Could you just admit that that's...
I think it's...
peculiar timing?
I think there are coincidences and there are dooms and fates and chance meetings in capitals.
I'm so glad that you found ways to fall asleep in.
Look, I am all for wild speculation, but
it's not wild speculation. At this
point it is, because they've given us enough about Halbrand as a character that makes me go,
no, they haven't. We have no idea what he did. We had Adar say to him, "Who are you?" and didn't turn his back.
Yes, so that is like, clearly he's significant in more ways than we know, but that does not mean he's Sauron. Okay, like, he has a completely different trajectory so far that I'm curious as to what his past is and everything, but none of that leads me to believe he's the Dark Lord. And if they're doing a thing where either it's like you're saying, which is an interesting theory, I split Sauron in half, he literally got split in half, or it's an amnesiac thing, like, that would be such a divergence from the character of Sauron that we know that I would be completely not on board for that and very disappointed. So I'm choosing to not believe that those are theories that they would go with.
Okay, all right.
So look, I'm all for wild speculation. I don't think we've seen Sauron yet. Okay. I think that will be revealed later. Now, I do want to touch though on Adar saying he killed Sauron. This is interesting because we know, so he makes, at the end of the episode, Waldreg ends up putting the sword in. He makes Mount Doom erupt, which clearly is going to be good for Sauron. But I'm still not... Is Adar... I mean, Adar's clearly got beef with Sauron, right? I don't think this was just a bluff to Galadriel of, don't worry, the Dark Lord's dead.
He could have thought... He could think he killed him.
He could. Very... I mean, because he could have just, killed his physical form, right?
Especially since we already... He says he's looking for powers not of the flesh, but of the flesh. I don't know exactly what he said, but he was insinuating he was trying to make something that would hold him, his power. Yeah,
he was experimenting with the power of the unseen world, is right. What Adar says.
What is that?
The spirit world. When people who have seen the Peter Jackson films will be familiar or read the books, when you put the One Ring on, if you are...
That was cold. I've read the books.
Then you're included in that group. Beings of Arda, and only Arda, beings who are not of the spirit world, when they put the ring on, they are able to be in and see the spirit world, so they can see things. And now there are certain entities that exist in both or in one or the other. So, for example, Glorfindel, we see... that's why when Frodo has the ring on at Weathertop, he sees this shining figure, because this is Glorfindel in the spirit world, right? So, yeah. So certain beings are more present in the spirit world, but also in the sort of physical world. So what exactly? I mean, I'm assuming this is... my assumption is this is... he's trying to harness some power of the unseen world and use that for the ring.
What if he split him in half from his physical world self and his unseen world self?
That's not really how Maiar work. So Maiar don't have bodies. Okay. Maiar are the angelic sort of spirits. They don't have bodies. They can manifest bodies to inhabit and have a physical presence, but they are separate from them, if that makes sense. So they're not the same as mortals who like have a... whose soul is in... they have a Fea, which is a spirit, and a Hroa, which is a body. And those two things are connected, right? Maiar are just spirits, Fea. I don't know if Fea would be the word, but they are spirits that they don't have to have a body. They're fine. They can just exist as spirits, but they can manifest one. And now the difference a little bit is when you have like the wizards, who they were Maya incarnate, right? They were given bodies. So I believe for them it works differently.
Like if they lose their body, they would need to go through a reincarnation.
Yeah, like Gandalf does.
Like Gandalf does. Yeah.
So it really wouldn't work like that with Sauron, unless they're, again, they could change that. Who knows? Sauron does not have, I mean, he has a body, but that body can be destroyed and he's fine, right? He just is his spirit now, and he can... Would
Adar know that? Would Adar know that if he destroyed the body, he didn't destroy Sauron?
I don't know. I don't know if they have... The elves would have a working knowledge of Maiar physiology. Maybe. It's possible.
Or could he have slain him and think that he did the job?
It's possible, too. That's possible, too. And it's totally possible that an elf could have defeated Sauron, especially an elf like him. Or an Uruk, I guess now.
Uruk, please be kind.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't say orc.
That's fair.
So yeah, I'm interested to know more. Did he actually defeat Sauron in some way and rebel? And I mean, he did say he was not a god yet, so maybe he's trying to take the research that Sauron was doing that he was privy to and utilize that for himself now. And maybe he's just looking to establish himself in Mordor, and Sauron has nothing to do with this plan of Adar and the Orcs. And then that's going to be a conflict. Like, who knows? That's all up in the air, but it's very intriguing. And clearly he was mad at Sauron because he killed so many of his children. So I don't think
he didn't care for.
Yeah, I don't think he and Sauron are on good terms.
I would agree.
Yeah, which is very interesting.
Yeah. So one of the things I do like, and it was already hinted at, that Galadriel was coming to terms with, was something we talked about a little bit already, is her hatred.
Yeah.
Is not in line with what Sauron wants.
Elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, he's essentially saying that she's a subversion of her enemy. I think. Is that not what he was saying? What more do I need to elaborate on?
I don't understand. You're saying Adar is telling her that she's part of Sauron's plan?
The way her darkness and resentment is manifesting, and how she feels she needs to control the world, is not unlike how Sauron feels the same.
Yes, totally. Yeah, 100%. He is definitely holding up a mirror to Galadriel and saying, things she said before, where, when she referred to Elrond and Gil-galad sending her away because they could not distinguish her from the enemy. And Adar is confirming this by saying, yeah, I'm not the only elf who darkness has touched. Listen to yourself. You're wanting to, as you said, Jess, like, you're wanting to control the world in the way you want to. And now, granted, probably the way Galadriel wants to is maybe a little bit better, but
still her means to getting there, right?
Exactly. Eradicating a race of people.
Right.
I do want to touch on the another element of Galadriel's inner trauma and struggle, her conversation with Halbrand after they have, first of all, they get the hilt, the hilt, quote unquote.
Yeah, they totally got the hilt.
And they have this conversation. Now, I love this scene. I know there's going to be plenty of people out there who are shippers. Galbrand, Haladriel.
Haladriel. Just imagine the babies.
They'd be very attractive babies. I don't. This is not a romantic thing. As much as, look,
I couldn't disagree with you more.
respect the shippers. I respect them, and they can ship all they want. I did not interpret this as like when Halbrand says like, "Oh, when I was at your side," I wasn't like when I was at your side romantically. This, to me, I loved this scene because it gave us an insight into how these are two like profoundly broken individuals that are commiserating over the things that they do to try to feel whole. Right?
But then why say that it was shared between them and just not?
Because they are the only two people, like they are. It's like when you have an experience and you don't have anyone to share it with, and you're like, they are the only two that can understand each other because no one else around them is broken in the same way. And so for me, it was they're as friends commiserating over how broken they are.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and then also want to sleep together. I think that like, hey, we all know about trauma bonding. Fair. Just because that is what I think you're right. I'm not detracting from that. I think that the bloodlust, the finally like the sating of drinking salt water.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even though they shouldn't drink salt water, they like drinking salt water. Who doesn't want to have some catharsis after that with another very good-looking person? I'm just saying, ¿por qué no las dos?
Fair. Okay. The ship lives. The ship sails on.
I just think, because she also, we see her catch, like, her breath when they're interrupted by the guy who went to go find Halbrand, but use the urinal at the same time. I don't know what he was doing out there. Also, what gorgeous mastery of light they manifested in that episode, or that scene, because, they got the striations
through the trees
just perfectly. Yeah, it was beautiful. That's got to be so hard to do. And they just do such a great job making sure her hair's backlit the entire time. It's amazing. I just think it's not there. Okay. And I think they're playing with us in the same way. They're like, well, is Halbrand Sauron? Wait, is that? Wait, at our what? Wait, was it? Wait, so it's there. It's not there. And the other thing I have with this aspect of it is, or the thing that makes me okay with it is like, sure, she's gonna marry Celeborn. I get it, Celebrimbron. But have you only loved one person in your life after thousands of years of life?
No, you're absolutely right on that point. Like, there can be other romances before you end up with the person you're supposed to be with forever. I just personally, look, I get it, they're attractive. I personally don't see the Halbrand thing. I'm not saying there's not room for that interpretation. I just viewed this scene primarily as them bonding as friends and companions.
Imagine how great it will be when they sleep together and then he becomes Sauron.
That's the key that unlocks his memory.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God.
So we'll wrap up this episode talking about the key and the tunneling.
There's one more important thing.
Prior to this?
Oh yeah. What leads right up to the reveal of the explosion?
Of Waldrick?
Right before that.
Theo?
No, after that.
The Barrack?
Yeah. We get another Barrack moment. Now, I do have to, going back, because there's so many great Isildur Barrack moments. Honestly, they're my MVPs. of this episode, and maybe the series, honestly. I'm calling my shot for all 5 seasons. In the battle, or no, sorry, it's right after this moment, so I didn't miss it. So we get Isildur tending Beric's wound, trying to calm him down, and then Elendil comes in, and he describes that, he says some Elvish words, I don't know what they mean, to the horse, and calms him down, and he says, "Oh, he's feeling your pain. He's not in pain himself." And then Isildur's like, "Oh,
which I think is still a stretch, but okay. Isildur's in pain over what?
Over the fact that he's the home that he thought he had in Numenor is gone. Just not that he's not home, but he said it. Numenor doesn't exist anymore, right? And his mother died. Like, he's still obviously in pain over that. He's not physical pain.
That's right. They
pain.
don't have therapists.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
And so he describes this bond that you form with your horse when you first ride into battle with it. And he says, in time, that you become as one, even knowing the innermost feelings of each other's heart. So him sharing the apple, him riding into battle to save his dad, him and Beric are forever bonded. It's almost like a marriage, really.
I mean, that fountain going off really insinuated more than...
Yeah. That was definitely train going through the tunnel, rocket ship launching off, geysers exploding.
Stumper getting a kiss.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
A hummingbird just feeding. But then we get, on a serious note, we do get a great bonding moment with Elendil and Isildur, because he says, "Well, who taught you about this?" And he goes, "Your mother." And then Isildur's like, "You think you could teach me?" So we see some healing happening. We see this rift being closed, and they hug it out. But then the geyser happens, implying a lot. Beric rears up. And in the ensuing chaos, everybody's like, Arondir's like, "Theo." And Elendil's like, "Miriel." And everybody's calling out.
Even Antimo's the queen.
Yeah.
Queen. Even,
And Isildur, what does he shout? "Beric!
Beric!"
Like, not his friends, not his dad.
Beric,
he's like, "My horse." I love it. It is so good. A man and his horse, or a boy and his horse, I guess, C.S. Lewis.
They totally... Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah.
They totally commit to it. And even if there are implications, it's amazing.
It's wholesome. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I want no ill to come to Beric now, and I'm forever endeared, and it's amazing. I just love that was like the last Isildur moment we get is Beric.
Beric.
But then we do get the Waldreg scene.
Employee of the month.
Oh my God. So backtracking
I guess this is what I'm confused about.
Okay.
This was the hilt, right? And this was, I think Adar said this was a tool that was used to bind humans to them or something. He did say that, right? Like, I know that we knew he needed it.
We found out it was a key.
I know, but before, a couple episodes before, there was like a phrase. Anyway, here's the thing. It's a key that undams the dam.
Yes.
That needs to be resuscitated with blood. Why? Why go to all this trouble?
Because,
where's the foresight? Why did they need to undam the dam? Like, how was this? What did the Dark Lord want with that in the first place? Why was this part of the...
Yeah, I guess
the plan.
I guess the plan is to cloud Mordor in soot and ash and darkness so that it can be a land where the orcs are.
But if that were the case, then the tunnel wouldn't have to been built, which I have to say I'm so glad. Like you're like, well, no, they just needed a tunnel to walk. I'm so glad that wasn't the reason, that there was an actual reason why they needed the tunnel.
I think Sauron...
The tunnel would have been already built.
No. Sauron has been not in Mordor, and he's had to gather the remaining orcs and maybe make new ones. So we get the insight that even during Morgoth's rule, he was like having kind of a backup plan, right, of taking over. So he had the men build this as a way to, okay, in the future I can use this dam to, unleash Udûn, right? But he didn't have the infrastructure or the armies or the numbers to do the tunneling. So he's like, all right, well, I'll put that on my to-do list in the grand scheme of my plans. And so then when he finally had the means, he'd be like, all right, let me go do this. So he's a long-term thinker, right? He's not going to have all this stuff built right away. So to me, that's not a huge stretch. Now
it makes me think too that Sauron shared with Adar the plan, and that's why he went south and said, "Oh, well, if that's what you're going to do, then I'll just go do that and kill you."
I think so. Yeah, I think
right.
That was clearly he knew what it was going to do. It wasn't just like, "Oh, I was told to do this thing and I'm going to do the thing." Like I think he knew, all right, this is going to blow up Udûn, and this can be, because he even said in an episode prior, get one last good look at the sun. Right, so he knew what was going to happen.
No. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm saying, did he hear the plan from Sauron, who made this key ages ago to enslave the people of this land? He had the plan a long time in mind to command the Southlands. And so he said, the only thing that's missing is I'm going to make a lot of tunnels. And then when the tunnels are made, I'm going to reconstitute the key and then stick it into a hole and then turn the key. And then the dam's going to burst. And then.
Yeah.
So I think he told Adar that is my point.
I think so too.
That's the only thing I can imagine has happened.
Yeah, because he was there while he was doing the experiments. So. Clearly he was privy to a lot Sauron knew. But we get the explosion of Udûn. Fire and big meteor-like things start raining down. Muriel's like, get inside, take cover. It's like,
why? Your houses are on fire.
Yeah, I don't think getting in the inn is going to help you there. And everybody's running. Everyone's calling for their loved ones, including Beric. And Galadriel just doing the badass stare at the explosion and just letting it, very reminiscent. I saw people drawing comparisons to the wave. Her just standing there and the wave overtaking her. But this time, so she's letting the darkness, letting the shadow overtake her. Which, what does that mean for our dear Galadriel? Is she going to go full baddie? Is she going to let the darkness consume her? Or is she going to... she is standing defiantly in face of it. But remember, Finrod's advice, you have to touch the darkness first to see the light. So, Alex. I don't know. It's very symbolic and very cool. And now I kind of know, like, we saw those promo shots of, like, her covered in soot. I think that's going to be next episode. So we'll see her in the aftermath. I'm very excited to see... What does this do to her, right?
I didn't even see the imagery in that. I think a lot of people were just focused on the fact of, like, and now is she dead? And is the whole town on fire? Like, a lot of people just didn't understand how she could... First of all, she could definitely survive just a lot of hot air and smoke is what it basically is. It's not lava.
Right. It's just
that's overcoming
ash.
her. And they're good. The land is scorched. It's definitely what it's going to be. And no one just died there. They're far enough from... Well,
some people, we saw Númenóreans get hit with flaming debris.
Yeah, but it's not like lava didn't just like didn't hit the... No. Yeah, so that's what most people were focused on. And I too was like, well, what's going to happen now that she's in soot? Like she got just flame balled in her face. She's fine. So,
although emotionally, maybe not. And that I'm looking at this on this whole episode was about light, like the light and the darkness, and like this. We start with the sunrise, right, and we end with the darkness just overtaking the land. It's all there. It's so
you're so good at this imagery thing. I have a feeling we will not see. Well, actually, based off of a tweet from one of the Rings of Power accounts. Or like an image. I think we will see some of the aftermath.
Sure.
I didn't know if we would, but we really have to go back to. We're going to go back to
what's going on with the Mithril.
Elrond. Yeah, exactly. We're going to go back to Elrond. We're going to see a little bit more. We're going to start learning whether Gil-galad is just playing them like a jazz musician. I
think he's.
We're just going to get some resolution on that story. Is my point. I think we may get some more insight into the fallout of because Adar escaped.
Right.
We still need to know what happened to our good orc boy.
Oh yeah.
And I think we'll see some of the aftermath of what happened to the village and the townspeople in Southland. But I think we'll see more Elrond and Durin. I doubt it, but we might get a little bit more of the
I really hope we do. I hope they don't wait till the end of the season.
I think they're going to.
That's 2 whole episodes with no Harfoots and Stranger.
It wouldn't be surprising.
There is a lot to unpack with the whole Lyndon, Khazad-dûm stuff, Eregion stuff, so yeah.
But we'll see. It's kind of hard to say. And again, we're looking at it from an 8-episode movie. Yeah. And so, like, all is lost is next. Mm-hmm. So, I'd be curious to see how they
look. If they did what they did here with episode 6, with episode 7, but it was like Lyndon, Eregion, Khazad-dûm, I'd be into it. We get an hour long of just that stuff, and we have no Harfoots and the Stranger, and maybe a little bit of Southland stuff. I'd be like, hell yeah.
I don't think there's enough story to do that, but I could see it happening.
I think
with the Lyndon stuff.
It
could be. I think it would be a stretch. Alex, we've come to that time in the podcast where we need to do our Maythor Minute.
Maythor Minute. Well, look, we had a big climactic battle scene, right? Mm-hmm. I think we would have had, when we get the moment with Arondir and... Because the elves got to stick together, right? When we get the moment with Arondir and the orc... instead of Bronwyn coming in, at the end. She does come in, but first we get Maythor. He doesn't die here. I know that's your segment. He doesn't die, but he gets in the way. He sees with his keen elven eyes. He gets in the way of that pointy stick and hits it out of the way. But in the process, it goes into his eye. Now, he doesn't die, but from now on, we get Maythor with a really cool eye patch. And that's his whole thing now. That's it. It becomes his identity, his personality. He's the elf with the eye patch, the one-eyed elf, one-eyed Maythor. That's our boy. And I think we also would have had him with Isildur before Elendil comes up, and he would have been teaching Isildur like some elvish phrases to say to horses, because the Sylvan elves have a great connection with nature, including we see trees.
No, that would have it would have happened after Dad told him how to do
it would be
because
after.
They still needed the moment. Yeah, it would have to be because we still need Dad to go, how do you know that? Or he's teaching him and Elendil goes in Elvish and then Isildur's like, how do you know how to do this, Dad? Or whatever. So we still need that daddy moment, the non-toxic male bond.
And then as a moment of levity after they hug it out, we get Maythor like, oh, well, you can,
marry your horse. So, hey, they can consent.
Right.
So I think that we're going to get them together at the tower working in tandem.
Yes.
And it's going to be really funny, and Maythor's going to like slide down and surf like the rock, like, slide and hit their head. I just think he's going to do funny things.
Kind of like Legolas Gimli, where they're like bantering, like, oh, you missed that one,
100%. Yeah. And, Maythor's the one that kicks the block off the bridge that causes the door, and then they like wink at each other and then they run, so everyone's really excited. And unfortunately, how he dies is exactly how you described. That's exactly what I was going to go. It's a moment of self-sacrifice.
Oh, no. So he dies in your version, not just a cool eye patch. Okay.
Hold on. It's worse than that. No. Bronwyn does come, and she does stab the orc. And at the same time, because they're not communicating because they don't like each other because they're both stealing attention from Arondir away from them. He pushes Arondir out of the way and replaces him against the well, and Bronwyn pushes too far.
And he goes in?
And guts not just the orc, but also
it goes
Maethor.
Through. Oh my god. Well, plant an Alpharin seed for Maethor. New life in defiance of death.
Yeah. He just keeps on dying for the sake of dying. I hope we see some more of our orc boy. I don't think Antimo died either. I'd be very sad if he does. We still need to see what's going on with the Milan deal, like how he goes to the drinks.
Forgot to mention, I do like how strategically his helmet gets knocked off right before his big battle scene, because they're not going to go like he's wading into battle without a helmet, because that's ridiculous. But it conveniently gets knocked off.
I bought every second of it. They're doing such a great job of giving each moment to the characters that they've set up. And just, anyone who's criticizing the writing I challenge them to try to take this on.
No easy task.
No easy task, but it's really easy to destroy something someone else has created. So that's why a lot of people are very negative in general. Alex, what are the several different ways that people could potentially get mentioned on our podcast, like McJur, or engage with us? How can they help us? What's the different ways we can do it?
They could, number one, go and follow us on Twitter, at Pod of the Rings. They could go to patreon.com/Pod of the Rings if you want to support the podcast and get early access to episodes. There's a couple different tiers that you can sign up for. You can email us at podcastoftherings@gmail.com if you have thoughts, comments, corrections. Did we get anything wrong? Anything you want to just let us know, and we might mention it in the episode. And
awesome.
Instagram.com.
Instagram.
What is it? At Pod of the Rings on Instagram?
It's
Potterpod. POTR Pod on Instagram.
Because why make things easy for you folks? Also, don't forget to share the episode with your friends. If they're, a lot of people we know are waiting till House of Dragons is over to watch this. When those friends of yours are done watching House of Dragons, let them know that there's this cool podcast that they can check out. And once this season's done, we will continue with some deep dives into lore. I actually want to learn more about Celeborn. There's certain things I want us to talk about. I have a hit list in my mind. Anyway, it's a long way to say, Alex, that I just love doing this with you and for you. We've had this in our back pocket as an idea for at least 8 or 9 months now, and here we are. It's great. It's exciting. We really love all of our listeners and people that we're engaging with on the internet. It's super fun.
So much fun.
It's definitely become a poop posting site on Instagram, but that's okay because someone's got to do it.
Look, it's fun to take Tolkien seriously and talk about the lore and the implications and the themes and darkness and light, and then it's fun to make stupid jokes about Tolkien and poop posts, as you say. I love the poop memes. They're great.
Poop memes are great. Alex, until next time.
May our roads meet again.